Welcome, everybody. We are starting our month strong by reviewing amazing decks created by artists from around the globe. This week, we feature Jennifer Steidley, who recently crowdfunded the Tarot Disassembled deck, which we'll be diving into this week.
Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell.
I'm Magical Maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
and the craft.
Jennifer is the author and creator of 3 self-published tarot decks, which is awesome, including the hugely successful, as I said, Tarot Disassembled, which is a 78-card tarot deck that deconstructs and re-examines the traditional symbolism of the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. Jennifer has been a graphic designer for over 20 years and has been fascinated by tarot throughout her life. We're so excited to dig into the details of your awesome new deck. Thank you for joining us, Jennifer. Yay!
I'm so excited to be with you guys. So excited.
Yay! So tell us a little bit about how your magical journey began.
Sure. My magical journey began probably when I was a child, and I basically would collect sticks and rocks and, little bits of nature. And then one time I decided this crayon was magical, and I made it like a little bed with cotton and stuff, and kept it under my bed and would treat it like a little, like it was a little, I don't know why I thought it was magical, but I believe very strongly this crayon has magic powers. And if I treat it right, it will give me the magic back. So I kind of made up little magic stories in my head from the time I was a child. I didn't have any magical, family lineage or anything as far as exposure to anything. So I just was kind of making up as I went along. And then tarot hit me in my college years, many years ago. We'll just say it was the 90s. Okay. Things were crazy back then. And I don't know if you guys were ever belonged to one of these, but they had those CD of the month clubs where you could get the CD sent to you in your genre that you like. And then you could also order 10 for $1 or something from the discount section. Well, they had a book club like that was like a new age book club. And so I had a subscription to this new age, which is what they called it back then, new age.
Yeah.
And I had this subscription when I was in college to this new age book of the month club. And one month they sent a tarot deck. And I don't think I had ever seen a tarot deck before then. I was like, what is this magic? Mm-hmm. And it just I think it was an Amy Zerner Monty Farber deck. And I don't think I still have it, so I don't remember the exact one, but I think it was one of theirs. And I was just like, what is this? And it instantly just kind of spoke to me on some deep level. And so I kind of started playing with tarot, kind of by myself in my 20s. And then I really tried to seek out other decks and collect decks, but things weren't as massive as they are nowadays as far as the number of decks and stuff. So it was more like I had 6 at one time and thought I really had a ton. Now I have upwards of 100, of course. So,
right. Yes. Hundreds dropping every month now.
Right. Yes. It's so amazing right now. It's just such a huge time for tarot. But I just kind of practiced not in secret, but I just didn't have any groups or friends that were into any of that. Some of my friends were like, "Oh, give me a reading," once they understood, but they weren't against it. They just didn't understand it. So I just kind of did my own thing by myself for a long time. And then, just in the last couple of years, I'm like, there's this whole community around tarot and this whole amazing, connections with, especially through social media and everything. So that's opened up whole new doors for me as far as understanding there's so many people who love it like I do and want to nerd out about it. So
what is it about tarot that draws you in? I mean, there are oracle cards. There's a lot of other divinatory tools and other things. What do you think draws you into tarot specifically?
Well, I definitely love a good oracle deck as well. But as far as tarot, I think I've always had some sense of love of symbols and love of visual language beyond just art. And obviously art is full of that too, but beyond, just going to an art museum, there's something so specific about this system of structure of symbols and symbolism. And I think that really is ideally why I became a graphic designer, was because I was trying to find something that resonated with me as far as creating visual language. And I didn't feel like I had it in me just this is not me putting down artists. I think artists are amazing, but I didn't have it in me to just be a creative artist, because I would look at a canvas and be like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Whereas if I have a purpose and a structure, and that's kind of where my brain wants to go, with that split right, left brain. So I think it's also what led me into graphic design, that love of visual language and visual symbols. And the tarot is so rich with that.
So what made you decide to create this deck specifically? This is your third deck.
It's my third deck, but my first tarot deck.
Oh, so the previous two were oracles, correct?
Yeah, one's kind of more of a affirmation deck. It's sassy, foul-mouthed chakra affirmation.
Oh, I like that.
So it's more of a playful, just kind of I am statements with a lot of fun, foul language. So that one's more of an affirmation deck, I would probably classify it as. But yeah, the other one is probably kind of more of an oracle deck. This was my first stab at a tarot deck. As far as why this one just, you know how sometimes ideas just want to get made, like you feel it, like it kind of just, they somehow push and nudge, and then you're like, I think this wants to get made. So I'd been playing with ideas. I definitely wanted to do a tarot deck, although I felt it was a little daunting, because oracle decks, you can kind of be real free form and be like, okay, I'll just play and maybe make this many cards, and I don't have to have a set number, and I don't have to have a set, language per se or structure. So it was a little daunting, but a little exciting too. But my son has always been a massive deconstructor. So literally from the time he was like a toddler, like this child would take any toy apart somehow. We have funny pictures from back then where he would, he'd have little toy trucks or little toy trains, and literally there'd be just a bin full of, here's a wheel and an axle and like whatever parts he could manage to like pry apart to take something apart. And my husband's a little bit like that too. He's a kind of a computer geek, and him and my son will, when they have an old defunct piece of equipment, will literally have fun in the driveway, tearing it apart and looking at the inside little pieces of the computer. My son loves that. He loves deconstructing things. So I think there was one day, it sounds really silly, but there was one day I made him lunch, and yet again, he has a sandwich. He eats everything in the sandwich, but he has taken everything apart. Here's, every little piece of the sandwich and laid it all out. Like just looking at him like, what, why? And it's something just hit me. And I was like, I wonder what would happen if you took apart the tarot, like took apart that language, and kind of deconstructed it. And that's kind of where that little light bulb went off. And then I had other decks I was kind of playing with and working on, but this one just really felt like it wanted to get, like it shoved its way in front of everything else. It said, no, stop. This is what we're doing. So that's kind of how it went. It was exciting because once it started rolling, it was an easy one to make, if that makes sense. Like some of them are hard. You have the idea, but they're really hard to get the momentum and kind of get everything kind of just the way you want. So they take a lot of finessing. This one just really started rolling out of me. So,
that's how you know it's meant to be. So good.
So for everyone who's listening, who may not be watching, the video, describe for everybody the concept and what someone might see in the Tarot Disassembled. What's the high level concept and what someone might see on a card?
So it's very much it's based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. And because obviously there are some different systems and schools of tarot out there. So based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and really literally deconstructing kind of the symbols that lie in each of those cards, because some of those symbols are very minute and very tiny, where you don't even hardly notice them on that little small bit of cardstock. But they all have meaning. Some of it's really, I'm going on a tangent already. I can feel it. I'm going on a tangent.
That's good. Embrace it.
I'm going to reel it in, and then we'll go on it. So when you look at the cards, they're very much, it's no longer a pictorial. It's no longer a scene acting out a specific, event or a specific scene. It's more taking the individual symbols from that card and kind of just making a pattern with them. What some people, I had one person describe it as, which I thought was an interesting way to look at it, those old model kits where you'd have the little plastic with all the little pieces ready to kind of twist out of the plastic. It's almost like a little kit of pieces on each card now.
Yep. Like little paper doll clothes, something like that.
Yeah. Like where you have the little bits and pieces, kind of, because it doesn't really make sense as a pictorial or a landscape. It's more of they're kind of arranged in a way that felt right, but very random in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a card that's one of your favorites to describe, or one of the ones that turned out like really well?
Let's see. I am very fond. I know it's a lover's year as far as a lover's card year, but I am very fond of how the lovers turned out. One of the things I played with was really kind of making some elements bigger and more prominent than they would be in maybe the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. They're kind of a little bit smaller and, less obvious. And so I really had fun blowing up like the snake and like some of the other elements in that. And then there's something about the way elements come together and feel like they balance and work together. That's just part of probably my graphic design brain, but I definitely like that one for sure. And then I'm really fond, which is no surprise, I'm a Virgo, so it's probably not a shocker, but I'm really fond of the Hermit. It's a very minimal card. There it is right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very minimal in its symbolism compared to some of the others that have just chocked full. But I still feel like something happened there that felt really nice with the way that it all balanced out, in the pieces.
So to describe it, there's a lantern, there's a 6-pointed star, there's a mountain, there's a staff, there's a beard, and there's like a starburst symbol, and then there's a bunch of stars in the background. There's the number and the title.
And it's gray. So I also love the Hermit card because Virgo. Right. So when it comes to attention to detail, how did you figure out which symbols you wanted to feature versus which ones you left off?
Yeah, basically I would start with each card and I'd really look at it thoroughly and also research to make sure I wasn't missing anything, maybe that I wasn't visually kind of picking up. And I would kind of lay all the different symbols, make all the symbols, lay them all out on my little canvas. And then I'd just kind of start playing with arranging, if that makes sense. I definitely felt like there were very few symbols I tried to really be inclusive of every symbol that had any real meaning. I also sometimes even added, well, not very often, but I went a little off rails occasionally and added some symbols that weren't from the original Rider-Waite-Smith. One case was, what's the one when he's stealing the swords? Which swords is that?
5 or 7?
I think it's 7. Yeah. He's stealing the sword. It's about thievery and deception. And he's got the swords and he's got this funny little like furry spiky hat. So
yes,
I don't know, like it looks like he's wearing a porcupine on his head. So I was like, I'm gonna throw a porcupine in there, like a tiny one, just a little baby porcupine.
That makes so much sense.
In some ways it kind of adds meaning because that one obviously is not a traditional symbol, but like it's a little bit of a bristly card because, what's going down is pretty, a little bit uncool and a little sus. So I think throwing the porcupine in there and, and maybe if nothing else, like have your defenses up, be ready because somebody's doing you dirty.
Exactly. Self-protection.
So, but yeah, for the most part, I tried to really not leave anything pertinent out. I might have definitely here and there left something up, but I tried to make sure every symbol was included, even if they were small. And then I just really played with size and scale and arrangement. Some of them just kind of came together and some of them I had to really be like, I don't like this. I don't know. And really had to play until it felt right.
And so how long did the whole project take you to design?
Not relatively long. I think it was probably about 4 to 5 months of actual designing once I had the idea. Which is not that long relatively, especially for a deck, because decks can be really long labors of love. So it wasn't really too terribly long, but some days it would feel like I would knock out a couple at a time and, things were really kind of rolling. And other days it would feel like it just, I got to come back to it because this isn't working today. So.
Well, we've all had those days, right?
Right.
You go to do it anyway, though. And that is the thing. Even if you only do it for 5 minutes and you're like, meh, all right, well, no.
Push through.
Let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll get into some more of the making aspect of the deck. We'll be right back. Exciting news, listeners. Knit a Spell is coming to Patreon this summer. Our fan club will help you gain access to advance notice to our monthly topics and guests,
episode outtakes,
voter power for future guests and episode topics,
private community to connect with other fans. That's my favorite.
exclusive giveaways and promotions. And coming soon, we will be adding a special segment to Knit a Spell, which will be a Q&A segment with your questions. Patreon members will be exclusively answered for their questions, so we hope you'll join us.
Join us.
And you'll be doing this all while supporting one of your favorite podcasts, wrapped up in our gratitude. To learn more, sign up for our newsletter at knitaspell.com. Hey, Jim, I was just on your website and I saw that you have an option for readings. Are you doing more than just palm readings now?
I have started offering tarot readings in addition to palm readings.
Yes, finally.
You can find information about tarot readings or palm readings on my website, thedivinehand.com. Both are available virtually anywhere in the world, or if you live in the Seattle area, I am seeing clients in person as well.
Thedivinehand.com. That's where you can go to learn more.
And we're back. The style on this deck is really cool. Do you have a stylized description for this?
I would say it's minimalist in a way. It's very graphic, very graphic designery, just because it's very flat graphics. Very
icon. They seem like
yes.
they're icons.
Right, icons. Almost like I definitely do a lot of logo design in my professional services, and that's what it feels like a little bit like. They're all kind of condensed down, simplified, right. versions of these particular animals and shapes and everything.
Right. You also didn't put any people in there. I mean, you have like a symbol of a person, like when you have the hanged one, there's a symbol of a person when it's a particular reason, but there aren't any images of people. Tell us about that approach.
Yeah, I feel like they just didn't feel like they belonged once I started stripping out the symbols, because, obviously there's a narrative to these cards, but the symbols tell a narrative on their own. And they also kind of start to shape a different narrative when you take the scene out of it. And I really didn't want there to be, I didn't want there to be color or gender, or I really just wanted to take all of that out of the narrative of it and really strip it down to the bare bones of what some of these rich symbols have to say on their own. There were a couple times where I felt like I had to have some kind of humanoid in there, because it becomes a symbol in the crossing of the legs on both the world and the hangman too, because the hangman's like a reverse, and the leg is crossed in a certain way that makes a shape in itself.
Sure. And
so that's where I really was like, that needs to be in there, because that's the shape of the body is a symbol itself. And you can't have the tower without some people, at least a little figure falling. You almost just can't express that.
Or you had the devil with the hand.
Yeah, no, hands I did include. Yeah, like we were talking about at Tide. Hands I definitely did include, because a couple of those are really pertinent symbols in themselves. And with the Hierophant and the devil, some of those are pretty real, have a lot of meaning behind that. So I definitely included disembodied hands in a couple.
Sure. Yeah. But not including the person. So this is the idea of disassembling the card away from that overall narrative into the symbols, and then letting the person reassemble this themselves.
Right, definitely. And, as soon as you include people there, you can't not have emotion on the face, or even if you try not to, if you try to have it be just very placid, there's going to be something coming through that starts to feed into that. And I wanted to just really remove that from the storytelling of it.
So what you use instead of people are those little, what we use in artist class as a little gestural figure, like those little models. What are they? Do they have a name?
Wooden mannequin.
The little
wooden mannequins.
Yeah, the wooden mannequins that you use as
you have all the movable joints.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Drawing and whatnot tool. Yep.
Yeah, because that way I could make them blue, and they wouldn't really have a body shape, and they wouldn't really have gender, and they could just be very nondescript, but do the job of telling the story of, okay, the leg is curved this way for a reason and bent this way for a reason.
So one of the aspects that particularly caught my eye was the color of the cards. I noticed there are 9 colors, I believe. And
yes.
I was like, oh, is there meaning to 9? Like, because she's a Virgo and that would be 9. It makes sense, kind of. Was that a coincidence? Why those colors? I'm just curious. Why the color? Why did some have only 3 while others had several in that color?
Right. There's
please
really
tell me.
I love where you're going with it. I actually feel like I love the deep layers there you're bringing in, but there's really honestly not anything that deep about the colors. I kind of started with inspiration from Rider-Waite-Smith's palette, and pulled some colors that I felt were still kind of very prevalent, like that kind of bright orangey yellow is very prevalent in the Rider-Waite-Smith. There's a lot of grays. I kind of took some of the colors from that palette and used them, kind of kept them, and then I threw out some colors from that palette. There's a couple that are more like deep maroons. There's some of that's from the printing, what they had to work with for printing back then as far as blending of colors. But I wanted this to be pretty vibrant and pretty colorful. So I kind of established my color palette. And then once I had what I consider to be my final color palette, I kind of organically worked with color. There are some that are almost like if you lay down like the Rider-Waite-Smith version next to it, like some of those aces with those gray backgrounds that are very similar in color palette. And, they look almost identical as far as the colors from the originals. And then there's some that depart completely. Like the Empress, I kind of use this bright spring green in the background, but still intentional. So organic, but intentional because, the Empress is so lush and springy and everything grows with, that energy. So I like that kind of vibrant spring green as the background. And since I was taking out the narrative and taking out the scene, I didn't have to have like blue sky or, I could kind of be like, okay, I'm just going to put a crazy green color in the background because it doesn't really have to make sense as a scene.
Yeah.
Because green skies would be a little scary maybe, but
yeah. Well, they're just so pretty. I mean, even if you don't know anything about tarot and you just spread them all out, it's a rainbow of fun cards. I just really enjoy them. And even the box comes in 2 different colors. Yeah. You can get gold or you can get black. I got the gold because I love yellow. Yes. And Jim knows me. He got the black.
Yeah. And I got the black.
You would not believe how polarizing those colors were. That's the whole reason I ended up doing the 2. As I was gearing up for this project, I was sharing a lot of the kind of, things as I was creating with my, people on social media and such. And I was asking for feedback. And so I'm like, I can't decide. What do you guys think? I'm kind of drawn towards the yellow but I kind of like the black. And people weighed in and it was like freaking team Jacob, team Edward on this. People had such strong opinions about it. Some people were like, I hate yellow, it gives me migraines. And other people were like, I love that it's not like a black box because there's so many black boxes. So I was like, I had such split 50-50 feedback. I'm like, I'm just going to do both. So
I love that. When you can't decide, just do both. Yeah. Yes.
Well, it was totally fun that you asked me too, like, what color box does she want? And I was like, I definitely want the black box, but since we're both going to get a box, I'm like,
that's right.
Well, send her the yellow. And if she hates it, I'll trade with her. So it's perfect. But I mean, your book is a beautiful,
so
bright color. And if you got a black deck and you want yellow, well, look, the book is yellow. Or if you got a yellow book, a yellow deck, and you want black, the back of the book is black. So shut up.
There you go. So shut up.
Just shut up. And the edging, that red edge.
Oh, and the edge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is so cool. Okay, so I love that it's this red and that it's matte. Like, I mean, not that I don't love like a shiny, reflective, gilded edge, whatever, but this is so fun that it's not that, It's
Thank you.
different.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. I love a good sparkly edge. Don't get me wrong. I love a good foil because, I like all the shimmer, but it just felt like it made more sense with the kind of the graphics and just that laminate I was going to get put on the cards, that kind of soft, everything felt a little softer and more matte.
Yeah. And it almost feels like it activates the cards too, since it feels like the most comfortable way to shuffle them is sort of like the whatever this one is, the 2 hand shuffly thing.
I'm just making rude gestures.
Yeah. This,
How do you use the deck? Is this the deck that you go to?
It's starting to be, but it's funny. As a creator, I'm weirdly hesitant to use my own decks sometimes. Not across the board, but I have so many decks that I have love for in my collection that there's something so, bitingly personal about it. Like if I read with that, it's just going to serve it up because obviously I created it and it's like, we know what's up with you. Like it's not going to pull any punches with me. So I'm using it more and more. And I definitely have love for it, but it's funny. I almost have to be like in the right mind space to use my own deck. I have to be like, I'm ready. Tell me what you got. I'm ready for it. I don't care. Tell me the truth. But I definitely am using it more and more for daily draws and, doing my own work with it. I've kind of been trying to play with it a little bit more playfully. I'm kind of been playing with this idea of doing like little symbol scavenger hunts in life, like where I'm looking for symbols in the real world too. Or pulling a card and being like, I wonder if I hone into a symbol on that card where I might see it in the next couple of days in the real world where it might be reflected back. So I've been kind of playing a little more playfully with it. We're like doing symbol play with it and kind of seeing where the synchronicities happen, which is really fun.
Oh. So funny that you say that because I pull a card a day and I pulled the 9 of Pentacles and I came home the other day and I almost stepped on a snail who was moving across the steps.
Right.
And,
and that snail in the Rider-Waite-Smith is like literally so tiny. You almost can't see it. Mm-hmm. So I try to make him a little bit bigger.
Yeah, you made that snail really big here because everyone sees the bird on her.
Right. The
fountain, yeah. So the fact that you made that snail huge, it's one of the things that people don't know. Or really the one that I think is really fun is the bell on the 5 of Pentacles.
Yes.
Nobody knows about that, which it leads you to a question that's not on that you might not be expecting that I just have off the top of my head. What doing this deck, every time someone writes a book or creates a deck or something, they learn something certainly about their project, but they learn something about themselves.
Yes.
What was something that you learned about yourself?
So I'm going to answer that in 2 pieces, if that's all right. I'm going to get deep for a minute.
Yeah, get deep.
Let's go.
Yes.
I learned I actually really like to write and that because I couldn't shut up once I started. And so I learned I actually enjoy that process. And I definitely second guessed it. I'm like, I'm not a writer, but I want to give them a good thorough, and I think I even explain it away in the beginning of the book. Like I'm not a professional writer. Hopefully that won't be painfully obvious in this book, but I really think I'm actually okay at it. I think I have a voice and that I haven't allowed to come out in that way. So that was kind of huge. And I definitely would like to pursue that more. And then the other thing I learned which is one of those lessons. It's like life has been trying to teach me this for years, but how we're just stubborn and kind of stupid sometimes. And so just doing the Kickstarter and with my Kickstarter, I was just like, okay, please, I just want to get it funded. I just want to get it funded and hence see it become real. And so I had my budget and all I really was focused on was hopefully it can get funded in the 30 days. If you're familiar with the crowdfunding format, you usually have a set campaign, a lot time, and your set budget that you're trying to get funded. And it got funded in 6 hours. And I'm not just trying to just pat my own back, but I think I still like sometimes walk around in shock when I think about that and how well it did by the end of the 30 days. And so I think I've tried really hard to take the lesson of like, don't put limits on yourself. Like, why do you limit yourself in what you think is possible that you're able to do and create, So I think that's me getting a little bit deep with it, but it's one of those lessons. I still need to like remember it because I still just want to play small sometimes and be a little bit hidey and kind of, like not hidey like a person, like kind of
it's like your private things,
too showy or too out there, but the reality is there's no reason to put limits. There's no reason to play small.
I find that is quite often how artists feel in general. Like, they're the last to value their own work, even if everyone else around them is like, we'll do it. Like, just give us the opportunity to give you the money and we'll do it. Like, so you should make it be something you want to do. Right. And know we're here. But I guess at least now So
yeah. Well, beautiful lesson.
You're damn brilliant. This deck is Truly amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Your class. So anyone who has a chance to take a course from Jennifer, either at an event like the International Divination event that we were at in Dallas, or at a future event, or online, do it. Her classes are well organized. They're excellent.
Imagine that.
Everybody who took your class, which I'm kicking myself for not being able to be there, people told me, they were like, her class was tremendous.
Aww.
So go and like take her stuff.
Well, you just made my day. Thank you.
It's so good. Well, let's talk about the guidebook because
yes.
And
speaking of expert, you wrote the book on it. So.
And this writing is awesome. It's so easy. Did you love the glossary in the front, Katie? We often have there's a glossary of common symbols, which I have referred to a couple times since I got this deck when I'm doing readings myself, where I was looking at a card and I thought, oh, shoot, what is the apple again? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's right. Jennifer has this glossary of symbols in her book, and I can open it up to page 12 and look up apple and say, okay, this is in a couple cards, and it says what cards are in the Lovers and the Queen of Pentacles. And then I can look up like the apples related to knowledge, nourishment, fruitfulness, abundance. That is
an amazing
everywhere.
Table of contents.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome to hear.
I think what we both appreciated about it is that it makes it easy for anyone to pick up tarot with this deck and this guidebook. I mean,
hopefully,
people who have done it for years, I'm sure will glean new things because, like you said, they take the people out and you get totally new fill-ins for what's not there. Or if you've never done tarot before and you really are like, I don't really know, but I would like to have more extensive learning apparatus, this is exactly what you need.
That's awesome. Thank you.
What made you want to make an extended guidebook? You know, so many times you just get like the little pamphlet that fits in there that just says 2 things about each card and you hope for the best.
Yeah. I basically, like, a large percentage of this project was the research, because that's definitely something that I like. That's probably a little bit of my Virgo coming out. I love to dive down into like the well with anything that I'm like kind of on at the time, you know, that track. So I was researching so much and then finding so much information and then trying to compile it all. And I'm like, there's just too much here to do one that goes in the box. It needs to be bigger. I have too much to say. And I really even estimated like, it'll be probably about 80 pages or so. Like when I had my Kickstarter, I was explaining what they get because I didn't have the whole thing written yet. And then it like doubled, you know, so I just kept going and going. It just felt like that's what it needed to be as far as because each symbol had something to say. It wasn't just about the meaning of that card. It was each symbol. And honestly, you know, I'm definitely a deck nerd myself. And, you know, those little pamphlets, no offense to anybody that has a pamphlet. I mean, I'm more about the cards anyway, but those pamphlets go in the trash. I'm just like, it's just in my way. Get out of here.
Yes.
So I didn't really have any patience for a little pamphlet
There's a few exceptions, but yeah.
No patience for pamphlets.
No patience for pamphlets. But again, I love all my creators, and the cards are what I'm about. So it's not putting down the deck itself. I love, you know, a good deck that stands on its own.
So when you're not crafting art or writing, what other crafts might you enjoy?
I'm kind of one of those people that bounces around to stuff. I have a very low attention span. So I went through a phase where I was doing a lot of malas because I learned from a friend how to make the malas, and that becomes, I imagine it's like, I think of it like knitting, maybe in the sense that there's that tranquility to it. Once you get into the mode of doing the knots over and over, that it becomes like you're really just kind of in a meditative state and just working with the little beads. So I really enjoyed that for a while, but I honestly have not done it in a while. And then I kind of went down the path of learning how to do sigils and kind of learning one of the old school methods of doing sigils. So I love sometimes just, even when I'm just watching TV, doodling in front of the TV and making like a sigil for some, you know, affirmation or something. So that's kind of my more crafty stuff that I do. As far as non-magical crafts, the other place I spend 90% of my time is I do karate. And so I am usually getting beat up any day of the week.
Oh, so let me ask you about that real quick. How long have you been doing that? And do you find you need that like source of getting your energy out to where you're just like totally wrung out in order for you to like focus as a Virgo?
Yes, I do. And I'm a Virgo that one of those, as far as like going down the astrology track, when I saw the rest of my chart, when the first time I actually had a full chart done, I'm like, oh, okay. Because for a long time, I was like, I don't think I'm really a Virgo. Like, I definitely have areas where I get very persnickety. And then I have areas where I'm like a complete slob and I don't keep things organized. And I'm like kind of a little bit like fly by the seat of my pants, which is not Virgo-ish. So when I saw the rest of my chart, I have a lot of fire, like just fire everywhere. And I'm like, okay, because I generally feel like I'm a high energy person. Like right now, I probably had a little too much coffee, if I'm being honest. So I'm probably a little bit too high energy right now with you guys. I definitely have some energy to burn. And like, there's got to be some physical activity. I spent years not doing anything physical, like in my 30s. And then I discovered boxing and karate in my 40s. And I'm so much happier when I have an outlet that's regular, where I'm like kind of getting some stuff out and just kind of moving,
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, so it's huge for me. It is. Jim, we're gonna nerd out and you're gonna tell me about my hands in karate. But that's a whole nother subject. But I was thinking about that. I want to ask him like what it means, because I've broken multiple fingers now because I spar like this.
Is there a finger that you tend to break repeatedly?
Yeah, it's this one right here.
Oh, is that your left index finger?
Yeah, that's my left index. Yeah.
Yeah. So that has to do with your leadership sovereignty in your personal sovereignty, your personal leadership and expansion, and rediscovering your sovereignty and your power and your personal power, your personal sovereignty. That indicates you probably had a lot of breaking away of old patterns from your childhood and from how you were brought up, and sort of like rediscovering your power.
Oh,
and probably why karate in particular and defense and fighting type things are really powerful for you, because it is about, and those injuries are going to be related to times when you're not actually standing in your power. That's why you broke those fingers. When you're in your power and you're actually channeling the chi correctly, that finger's not going to break.
Love it. Thank you. I didn't mean to make you give me a reading on the spot. Thank you.
Are you kidding? It's one of the things we love to do.
Cool.
That's right.
In Knit-a-Spell is a quick little divination. We unconsciously set ourselves up metaphysically to get feedback through our hands. And our hands will get injured because of tiny little changes in the way that we move or change our hands. And then our hands receive, because we know how to position our hands in a way that doesn't get injured. But then our unconscious and our metaphysical sort of things put our hands in certain positions that the knife moves in a certain way and cuts our finger, or the paper cuts our finger, or the punch just doesn't hit quite right, or whatever. And we get an injury, a bruise, a sprain, a cut, a break, or whatever. Right. That can give us feedback as to what's going on around us. And it's really, really valuable. So understanding that provides amazing feedback. Yeah. Obviously, you want to treat that with your naturopathic or allopathic or Western medicine or natural medicine. And that's separate from the metaphysical message that it also sends.
Sure, yeah.
So how can people find out more about you, ways to support you? Do you have another deck on the way? What's going on?
Yeah. Do you do readings?
Don't actually offer any readings right now. It's one of those things I may at some point, but I kind of just feel like it's not where I want my time to go right now. I really want to just create right now. So on Instagram, I'm probably most prevalent. So that's probably where people can find me most, voraciously, is on Instagram at Ferocious Ink. And no extra spaces or characters. And basically, I try to share things that are kind of like fun but interesting about like symbols. And, I definitely share other decks because I'm kind of a deck nerd and I collect a lot of decks. And I'll do, sometimes pick a pile readings over there. But so that's where they can find me. As far as if I have any other decks coming out, yes, slowly. So it's one of those things, how some of those ideas just want to be like shoved their way to the front. I've had these two other ideas on the back burner for like 2 years that I've been trying to slowly work on that I think are really good ideas. They're not tarot, but they're like more oracle, but they definitely still want to get made. But ever since I made Tarot Disassembled, this other thing has kind of been shoving its way. So it's kind of going to be a sister deck to Tarot Disassembled. And it's going to be, I can just tell you guys if you want.
Only if you want it to be public.
Yeah, I don't
show
mind.
exclusive.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Exclusive. Done. So you guys will be the first to know. So basically it's going to be a deck I guess you could consider it an oracle deck in one way, but it's going to be a deck of the symbols from tarot. So instead of, so it's like, for example, taking like, here's the apple card, here's the, and taking all of these symbols you find in tarot. But I don't want it to be too simplistic. So they're going to kind of be graphically, they will be paired with other symbols they cohabitate with in the tarot. So there'll be more going on than just here's a picture of an apple on a card. And I think they could be used as clarifiers in a reading with a tarot reading. I think they could be used on their own as an oracle, or I think they could be used just for deeper symbol, play and research. But yeah, it's the one that just kind of keeps wanting to shove to the front. So I think I'm going to finish that, and then I'll try to get onto the other ones again.
I love that, because I do think that, you just have such great symbols in here.
And each of those symbols has such, layered meanings to them. So I'm already kind of been like working on my second revision of that book, but I think it might kind of transfer over to this deck where where I go a little even deeper into, okay, the apple, and like, here's like 4 different stories about the apple. Because there's mythology and religion, and there's like our modern day, thoughts. There's the actual, the fact that you cut an apple open and it has a pentagram inside with the seeds. Like there's just so much that my little nerd heart wants to nerd on about.
Well, it sounds like a great deck to go with, like you said, this deck, because even pulling these cards and then finding their matching one with any deck you have will help you look at that all new eyes. Right. And I like using 2 decks at once.
I do that a lot too.
Readings.
Like I'll use an oracle and a tarot at the same time. But,
they talk to each other all the time over there.
There's like ones that want to be buddies, they just want to be like friends.
Yes. Okay. See, I'm so happy to talk to people who get I was also the person growing up who had no one interested in the things like this, and we're just like, I guess it's just me.
Right.
So I still find it nice when I'm like, oh yeah, there are people out there.
Yeah, it's
that
nice.
This is just their regular conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh yeah. But yeah, if anybody ever wants to connect, I'm definitely always open. Hit me up in my DM. Like anybody wants to talk about stuff or ask questions, or just I'm always open for it. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, ferociousinc.com is where you can go to find out more. And you can also find her at Ferocious Inc. on Instagram. So make sure you're following Jennifer for all of her new things that are going on. This new deck that'll be coming out soon. More information anyway will be coming out soon. Thanks so much for your time, Jennifer. This has been
thank you guys.
Awesome.
You're amazing.
I just can't wait to see you again. Speaking of in person, will I see you at the Northwest Tarot Symposium?
Yes, I'll be there.
So everyone go to Portland, go to the Northwest Tarot Symposium.
Yes.
It's going to be amazing.
Come to our talks and hang out with us in person. So that is the second weekend in October. So plenty of warning.
That's right. Put it on your calendars, everybody.
What is that? October 7, 8, 9. Actually, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you do the co-creators day on the Thursday.
I'm doing that. I can't not do that. That's
me too.
Lineup is freaking amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, everybody. Like we said, go check her out. And Jim, I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
See you next week on Knit a Spell.
Hey, bye, everybody.
Guys.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes and Spotify, or following Knit a Spell on Instagram.
You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to enjoy full episodes of Knit a Spell and see our happy faces.
You can also learn more about readings, classes, and events going on with your favorite maker of magic, James Devine, by visiting thedivinehand.com and subscribing to his newsletter. Then follow Jim's fun and interactive Instagram account at DivineHandJim.
Keep up with Katie, the magical maker, by subscribing to her newsletter at lightfromlantern.com. You'll even receive a free knitting pattern as a thank you gift. Then follow Katie on Instagram at lightfromlantern for even more magical making tips. See you next week.